You are listening to WSFM 103.3 FM, Asheville, North Carolina. Or stream us on www.ashevillefm.org. By the way, I want to mention that if you go to our website, ashevillefm.org, a couple other things you can do other than just stream us live anywhere, any place. Number one, you can check out our very cool entertainment calendar. And second, you can always find all of our shows are archived there, and they stay up for about a week. So if you like what you heard here today, you can go back to our calendar and take a look at it and re-listen to it, whatever. So, good morning, and welcome to Dreamers and Doers. We are live, and we are local, bringing to you each Monday morning at 9 a.m. a conversation with folks from the arts, nonprofit, or entrepreneurial sectors. These are the folks that we are doing their dreams, making Asheville a better place to live. And in just a few moments, you're going to get to know two amazing guests that I have with me here today. You'll find out who they are, what they do, what they dreamt, what they are doing now. So we hope that our program today will not only inform you, but inspire you too to dream and to do. Our program support today is brought to you by Orbit DVD. Orbit is open from noon to 11 p.m. Orbit DVD is located at 783 Haywood, just down the street from us in West Asheville. Orbit DVD offers a variety of DVD and Blu-ray videos, video games, comic books for rental and for sale. Subscriptions are available. For more info, check out Orbit, O-B-I-T, DVD.com. I also want to mention today that the Organic Growers School is a 501c Asheville-based nonprofit that inspires, educates, supports, and people who want to farm, who want to garden, and live organically. They have been serving the Southern Appalachian and Western North Carolina communities since 1993. Their vision is to build a mutually supportive network of prosperous farmers, productive gardeners, and informed consumers engaged in creating healthy communities. More information about their workshops, classes, events, farm tours can be found at www.organicgrowersschool.org. Organicgrowersschool.org. Well, good morning, and again, welcome to Dreamers and Doers. I'm Carol Anders, along with your usually my host, Patrick Fitzsimmons, who's not available to us today, but we're delighted you'll be joining us in the conversation this morning. I have two really super guests here, one of whom I just met in the last maybe 15, 20 minutes of my baby life, and I'm going to have our other guest introduce him a little bit later. But I'm very excited about this particular guest because I've had an opportunity to peruse the website and take a look at a little bit of what this gentleman has done. Originally from Rutherfordton, North Carolina, just down the road. And he's also a graduate of Western Carolina University from about 2005, 2010. He was a collegiate footballer. I'm not sure what position he played. We'll let that surface in a minute. But along the way, he managed to learn and obtain a double degree in entrepreneurial and in marketing, along with other degrees in physical therapy. But along the way, this gentleman, through his own personal experience, I think was just set on fire and dreamt a dream about how can he help and work and motivate with other people. And to do that, he's become a nationally known speaker. He's become a motivator of young people. He also has been an author. We're going to talk a little bit about his book today, too. But without further ado, I want to welcome Chaz Jackson to our studio today. And I love the title of your new book out, Live, Learn, Lead Powerfully. And it's a teen's guide to leadership. So, Chaz, good morning, and I'm delighted you're here today.
Good morning, and thank you so much. That was an awesome introduction. That was amazing.
What position did you play? Just in case there's somebody out there thinking, well, was he the QB? Was he a wide receiver?
I played linebacker.
Okay.
I played linebacker at Western.
Okay.
I was actually originally recruited as running back, but I ended up actually back in Rutherford County. I was at East Rutherford High School, and I played both ways. I played running back and linebacker. So they needed me to fill that position when I did come to Western my freshman year. So, yeah, I played inside and outside linebacker. So
great, Scott. That's Catamounts, right?
The Catamounts.
All right.
Catamounts.
And, well, let's do this. Let's we'll talk about sports influencing your life, which I'm sure it did. But let's just get right into a little bit about, not every other person I meet on the street has written a book and has a book that's been published. Let's talk a little bit about your book. Can we do that this first thing in the morning and find out a little bit about what inspired you to write it? And, you can talk a little bit about where you're going to be promoting it later this week.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be delighted to talk more about live, learn, and lead powerfully as you're powerfully led by God. So this book, and I truly believe it with all my heart, is strategically designed to align anyone's mind towards greatness. You know, the person that takes this book and try to adopt some of the lifestyle this book offers, I truly believe they will be taking a daily challenge, the daily challenge of becoming a passionate visionary who is determined to leave a legacy for themselves by adopting unwavering life values and serving others in the area of gifting led by God. And that's so much. It means so much to me. And I definitely take this daily challenge myself every day because we're definitely learning as we go along in our journey. And for me, I'm very passionate about the youth. I constantly think about me growing up in Rutherford County.
Because it wasn't easy, is what I read about your background. You didn't lead a life or start out at the gate as a person of privilege. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, you hit it right on the money. You hit it right on the money. I grew up in minority, impoverished background where, there was ups and downs like anyone else's story. Thinking about my parents, it was 2 separate house homes. As well as when around the age of 7, I actually went to go stay with my grandmother. She was a awesome influence on my life, my grandmother and my grandfather. And between all of them, they helped me become the man I am today, knowing what they knew. They actually did the best they knew how to do once again. So, and I love each and every one of them to death.
And a lot that I read about you on your website, which, by the way, is one of the best websites I've seen in ages. It's like a tutorial, but it's also a good story. You mention over and over again, and I think even our other friend here mentions how you took bad experiences, hard life, hard knock experiences, and rather become a victim or let it defeat you, you turned it into a life's lesson or a building block. And congratulations, whether you were doing it intuitively or just from your human spirit or your faith informed you or that rich background of a loving family. I don't know. What do you attribute all of that to? Because that's a very wise thing or insight to have, because the average guy uses it as an excuse, stalls out. And again, I'm not pointing the finger, but I'm just saying that's a reality I think we've all observed.
Yes, and I would love to kind of share and give you more detail on me moving to create and live, learn, lead powerfully. And for the sake of time, I want to concentrate on impactful moments in life, because I feel like, and what I mean by impactful moments is those situations, those tragic moments in your life that you remember years to come or years after that event happened. Like for me, I can think back to when I was 5, 6 years old, and I shared this story in Live, Learn, Lead Powerfully. I was severely injured. I actually sustained a head injury to the point as well as getting glass in my left eye. And that was an impactful moment for me. And to this day, I thank my mother wholeheartedly because, again, I mentioned that I grew up in a impoverished environment and we lived on government assistance. And they was on the verge of taking my left eye out.
Oh my gosh.
So her fighting for me to keep that eye, man, I mean, that's amazing for me. And my father at this time, I didn't particularly know him very well, but him stepping in at that moment and having private insurance, because my mother was unable to pay for it or, had government assistance, it wasn't able to sustain the necessary funds to fly the necessary doctor in to do this procedure, because it was a small particle of a glass in my left eye that, someone very unique would have to do that procedure. But again, going back to my dad showing up with that insurance, my eye was saved, and I give all the glory to God for that. But with that, saying that brought on a lot of different dynamics as far as going back to school. And we all know how kids are. They see something that they're not really familiar with, they begin to act out. They don't completely understand. But over that period of time, I began what I like to call now is put on a fake mask.
When you say go back to school, are you referring to like college or
no? I'm actually kind of elaborating more on grade school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because when this incident happened, I was around 5-6 years old.
Oh, wow, just a kid.
Yeah, I was a young kid, and I began to get picked on at an early age. And going back to wearing that mask, doing and having that repeatedly happen, I began to develop low self-esteem, low value and self-worth in myself as I look back now as an adult. And that putting on that fake mask, it developed a whole lot of other attributes as far as testing, smoking and drinking at an early age as I'm beginning to progress, getting in trouble with the law. So a lot of red flag behavior began to develop based off of that moment. But another impactful moment, I met a coach. He was awesome to me, Coach Cosby, actually. East Rutherford High School. I'm done progressed on to my teenage now. But another impactful moment that really sticks in me, and I actually have in my book in the chapter Discovering Passion. This guy, he really believed in me. He really set the example of saying there is greatness in you and you can have anything that you put your mind to. And one of the things that, even though I was taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back as a kid, he really owned in and said, hey, you can play collegiate football if you put in the work. And he really supported that dream for me. So he was an impactful moment for me that even though I was in a somewhat of a dark presence in my life, he installed hope in me. So this was a very, very marquee point in my life, and he actually helped influence me being able to go to Western Carolina University.
So he gave you a whole new world. I mean, I guess a vision that you didn't, fair to say, wouldn't have had, I guess, without that.
Yeah, you hit it right on the money. And for him to do those things for me, and even going back to my senior year in high school, I actually sustained an injury, and he was right there with me along the way, as well as you mentioned earlier that I'm in physical therapy. Another passionate person, another impactful moment was a physical therapist that I did aquatic therapy with at that time, and he installed more hope into me. And he got me back on the field to still be able to do what I love whenever at that point I thought that my career was over. So, and it's ironic that I'm doing both of those things right now, that I work in therapy and I'm a coach. So,
what else I'm hearing too is an openness and a willingness to listen and to let others guide you. Because sometimes, I don't care what age we are, we sometimes have that mantle that, well, you've heard that expression, know it all, or I don't need anybody's help, or I can do this on my own, or who, says who, but a willingness to maybe pick carefully who you are going to listen to, but at the same point to really allow yourself to be open for that guidance. And I think you're now in a really probably good position to flip it, so to speak, and be the one who guides.
Most definitely, most definitely, and I'm so grateful that God put those people in my path to be able to, again, whenever I didn't technically love myself, they showed love to me, and they was able to light a torch inside of me, even though it maybe have been a light, but or not a very blazing fire at that point in my life, but it was enough to kind of get me to that next step, that next point in my life that where God was kind of molding me to go to, and. A last impactful moment that pops in my mind is I go into my adulthood, and this was May the 25th of 2012. I remember waking up seconds away from a head-on collision to a car where I barely missed it, turning the steering wheel to the right, me crashing my girlfriend's car into a wooden gate. Ironically, and it'll make sense here in a minute, that it was a church gate. And at this point, I was intoxicated. I was arrested on site. At this point in my life, this is after the college again, I was still dealing with some of those dark moments, some things that was never truly taken care of. And at this point, I was on the verge of losing my girlfriend, fiance. On the verge of losing my home. I had already lost my vehicle. I was losing my job. You know, again, was just in a very, very dark place to a point that I was broken. And it was time for a change. It was time for a change, and I enrolled into a rehabilitation program. It was a 42-day program. Something that I definitely had to become humble on. But at that program, building up to this time, I was in the church at times, on and off. It was never anything consistently. But at that program, I officially, and I had an authentic presence with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I accepted him into my life. And it seemed like after that moment, I began to open up. I gave it a shot. It was kind of, I let God take over. And it was like, man, we have to fix some of these things. And God had put the right people around me to kind of talk with me and develop problem solving tools to catapult me to overcome the adversity that I was going through. It was
a real awakening, obviously, almost. And it had to be something really impactful. I mean, a crash.
Yeah.
Not something that builds, but all of a sudden, and it sounded like it just jolted you out of that other dark place that you were in, or you just described.
Yeah, it was kind of like, again, where I would always take 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Oh,
it was
gosh,
like God. It was like God was just like, look, Chaz, like it's time. we have to.
Now,
get
what
some
else do I have to do? Like wake up. Yeah.
So for me,
he literally gave you a crash course that day in.
Yeah, exactly. Because the road that I was going down
was going to be nowhere.
Yeah, it was going to be. It was very dark. It was to the point that my lawyer had told my now wife Amy, like, look, this guy, man, he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. You need to get away from this guy. So to kind of give you an idea of what I was going, the path that I was going down. But again, things didn't get easier after that rehabilitation. There were still some things to be corrected. There's still things now.
We're always a work in progress.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
Own up
I'm
to
definitely
that.
not perfect at all. I'll sit on here and tell you that right now. But God has shown me a blueprint. You know, when I turned myself back over to that calling, He's shown so many amazing things to me. He's brought amazing people in my path right now. And because of all of that, Lecrae, he's a Christian hip hop artist, and he said a quote that really kind of puts everything that I'm trying to say together as far as moving into why I wrote Live, Learn, Lead Powerfully. He says, we should not be afraid of our scars, because our scars show wounded people that healing is real. So in Live, Learn, Lead Powerfully, I share some of my experiences while adopting some biblical principles within this book, and all of it's experience, you know, is wisdom. It's stuff that I truly have dealt with.
You learned again from something that was a bad experience. You learned, you made it a teachable moment to your own life, or your own salvation, really.
Yes.
But you know, I can't help but say, especially as much, I mean, I literally am old enough to be your grandmother, it's really hard sometimes for people to own up to things in their past that they're not proud of. Shame is a big shame is a big issue in our culture where we don't own to it and we just then shame and live under that cloud of it, and we don't really then ever be able to come fully, truly our own. And I congratulate you and anybody who is willing to put it out there and admit to it, own it, but the bottom line is move past it and learn from it. And that's very inspiring, I think. So I can see why you have the opportunity to inspire so many kids and so many young people. Because a lot of times people say, yeah, what do you know? Yeah, you didn't have the same thing I have to deal with. But yeah, I think you can wholly come and say, well, maybe not exactly like yours, but I suspect you have a great ability to empathize or to understand where a lot of the people you're working with are coming from.
Yeah, and I definitely encourage everyone to know that you have a story that's there. Maya Angelou, she said something that really sticks to me. She said, there is no greater agony than a bearing of an untold story inside of you. So
say that again.
There is no greater agony than the bearing of an untold story inside of you. Yeah. And I really had to really calibrate my mind. Billy Owls would call it the chiropractor of the mind, meaning I really had to align myself to really understand that. But each and every one of us can be an oxygen mask to another person.
Wow.
I mean, there's a lot of people out there that's not breathing fully, and you sharing and sharing how you've overcome the situation. That could be a story that gives someone else the ability to live another day. So I definitely encourage each and every person that's listening to this that don't be afraid of your story, because your story is your next
it's creating the one
seller.
Wonderful you.
Yeah.
Can I add something to that if it's all right? Because when I was working, I flew a lot. I mean, I was one of those jobs where you fly into these different places. And it always impressed me, the sign and the warnings, that they were telling parents all the time, if we have to use oxygen, put your oxygen mask on first before you go to your child. And I never quite got that until I asked this flight attendant one day. He said, that doesn't make any sense. These people love their children. No, they'll die for their child. But they said if the parent isn't first stabilized, they can't go to do then the mechanics of saving that child.
Right.
And they said there's a little bit of time zone in there. And what you just said is so significant. What a great idea of that whole idea. Put that oxygen mask on yourself first, then go out into the world.
Exactly.
It's a great way to think about that. Thank you.
Your story can help someone else breathe. So I truly believe that.
You have a friend here today, and we'll get into having you read a little something in your book, but I got to acknowledge this guy's nodding every time, no matter what you say.
We have to acknowledge him.
He's a good guy. I like him already, but tell us who your friend is here today.
This is my good friend, mentor, brother in faith, Reed Bennett. He's actually the owner of Gladiator Sports, and he's played a huge impact on my life. I'm glad he was able to be here with me, and glad that he's able to kind of take these next steps on this journey of impacting our youth.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to be here this morning. Anytime we get together with Chaz and I forget when we met, but we already had our faith in common. And then we know we both played football, which at that point it's almost like we met, 5 or 6 times. So we had that in common to draw us together.
You might have mentioned just a couple things about your work. Is that, talk about Gladiator a little bit too? Because I think it definitely is complementary to what some of the work you're doing. Or I can see where you would be working with sometimes the same group of people or referring different people.
Absolutely.
What's the Gladiators all about?
Excuse me. Well, what I found out, and it's the same thing. We don't have as much time, but it's the same journey. And it's my passion was football. And in my career, and I played in college and played a little bit of arena football, but in my career, I used my platform for myself. And that was my idol, so to speak, in the faith language. But what I realized years later was that I could use football, my passion. God showed me I could use that to guide and direct young people. So it all started with just a little football team, and it just has evolved into 3 sports now. We work directly with young men in the community.
That's here in Asheville, correct?
Yes, ma'am. It's in Asheville. We don't have a facility. We're in the process, and I have a big dream for a big facility and a big impact. And I think one day God will provide that. But at the moment, we use Biltmore Church as our home base as far as for athletic fields and
Where is that located?
Court.
Down on?
It's 35 Clayton Road in Arden. It's just right off of I-26 on Long Shoals exit. So, but that's another thing that Chaz and I brought us together. I think is just our passion for youth and knowing through sports, and sports not for everybody, but we don't turn away anyone.
Right, everybody can play.
Anybody wants to come play, and if you get to know me, I'm very competitive and I want to win. But the reason why we do what we do is because I'm concerned, just like Chaz. Where's this young person going to be 5 years from now? Where's he going to be, or where's she going to be 10 years from now? So we want to invest in the young people and help them find value in themselves, which would help them respect themselves and then each other.
Reed, is there a website or a Facebook page somebody can go to for more info?
Yes, ma'am. We are on Facebook as Gladiator Sports Academy, and on Instagram the same. And then the website is www.gladiatorsportsacademy.org.
Okay. So it's also a nonprofit.
Yes, ma'am.
Just so you know that. Okay. Quote from Chaz is that everybody can be a leader, and you talked about then in terms of their gifting. And what do you mean by that? Because it ties right into, I think, what we just heard.
Absolutely.
I believe that our Creator, He knew what we were supposed to do before we was ever birthed from our mother. I feel like everybody has greatness within them, that everybody has a gift inside of them, a gift and a gift. And for that to be manifested, again, you have to be like a seed. We are our seeds, and you have to be placed in the right soil. I truly believe that. I mean, we can lay a seed on this table right here, but it can go 10, 20, 30 years. It won't grow unless you're planted in the right environment. So I truly believe once we get in the right environment, know that we can be cultivators, that we can be a person that can protect that gift, and that we have the DNA inside of us to be natural teachers, that gift is manifested to serve others. And that's what we're all called to do, is to serve others in a Pacific realm.
You remind me of a quote from Mark Twain: "The 2 most important days in a person's life, the day I was born and
the day when they find out why." That's actually in my book. I love that quote.
We're on the same.
Yeah. We're like we kindred spirits, man.
We're
I'm telling
you, on the same page. and I think then there lies the gifting. Just use sports as an example. Maybe not everybody even physically can play football for a lot of the obvious reasons. It's a little bit rough and tumble there. But that might be the same person who's a great guy to keep the scores or keep some of the details of statistics that a team really needs to live by.
Yes.
Is your opponent converting 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 10? That's good to know that before you start the game. But so there's something, we can all bring something to the party. I think life's a smorgasbord. We can all bring a dish.
Agreed.
I truly believe that.
We made a new metaphor now.
I love that.
So, folks, if you're just joining us, in the studio with me today is Chaz Jackson, author of
Live, Learn, and Lead Powerfully.
And also with him is Reed Bennett from
Gladiator Sports Academy.
And we've really been talking about how their work with younger people, but I think it's also, everybody's young, and it just occurred to me, we're all young in one way or another, right? If you're new to something, then you're young in knowing about it. And even a young child might be old in terms of knowing a lot about a toy or something in their life. So I'm guessing your book is a pretty good guide for parents, teachers, people who work with young people.
Most definitely. And to be honest, it's a teen leadership guide, but I always encourage parents, teachers, coaches to actually read the book before they actually invest it into their kid. So, yeah, I definitely believe that for sure. They can definitely take a lot from it because, there's something for everybody in Live, Learn, Lead Powerfully. I truly believe that. A wise man once told me when I was writing this book, if you market to everybody, you market to nobody. So I really looked back, I dove deep, and I said, hey, you're really passionate about the youth, so why not let's try to invest in the young people. So,
by the way, you've got a book reading coming up.
I sure do. Downtown Asheville at Malaprompt's bookstore, June the 30th at 3 o'clock. We will definitely be there, be inspired to kind of share more about Live, Learn, Lead Powerfully, and I would love to have you there. And
autographed copies. And this sounds like this is a great gift for young people who are maybe graduating, birthdays, other milestone events in their life. I think young people are very receptive to that. There was a whole series of books. You might remember them. Oh, what was it? Something about... was it Campbell Soup or ABC's Soup for the Soul or something? I don't know if you remember.
Oh,
but
Jack Canfield.
Yeah, Jack Canfield. Thank you.
Yeah, I love Jack Canfield.
He had a series of books that I know from a personal experience in my own family really turned the life of my cousin around. It gave him motivation, inspiration. And guess what? He almost did it all on his own because those books just, Soup for the Soul, I think is what it was called.
Soup for the Soul. Yeah.
And so I have a feeling this book has that similar feel to that, or maybe could serve the same purpose. Is that...
Most definitely. And you bring up Jack Canfield. One of my favorite books that he wrote is The Success Principles. And in the book, he talks about success leaves clues. So you have to find the clues. And I really took that to heart because... He actually inspired some of Live, Learn, Lead Powerfully. It's funny you bring that up. But yes, I definitely feel that this particular book, I mean, if you're having a challenge of finding purpose in life, if you're having the challenge of overcoming bullying or having a challenge to be organized or trying to overcome procrastination, which I feel like is the graveyard for broken dreams. So we have to overcome that. If you have the challenge of just motivating yourself and trying to just figure life out. You know, it doesn't have all the necessary attributes. Obviously, you keep fueling yourself with other endeavors, but I truly believe that this book can kind of get you on the right path of getting the necessary values that it takes to make your dreams become a reality, because self-discipline is the link that connects your dreams to reality.
And you practice what you preach.
Yes,
walk
ma'am.
You walk the walk, you talk the talk.
I definitely try to, but again, I always fall short of the glory of God. So, you know, it's a day-to-day challenge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, I want to just take a little quick musical break, and I thought today'd be appropriate to have a tune from the funky folk music for the whole family, and it's an album called Build It Back Again. Billy Jonas Band. Billy Jonas does a lot of work in our town with young people and has bands and does songs, and this is from his album. This is a family-friendly. It's called I Mean. By the way, he is going to be at the Gray Eagle this coming Sunday, so you might want to check that out. It would not conflict with going to the reading. I've already checked. You can still go to Malaprops. Have plenty of time to go hear Billy at Gray Eagle, but this is called I Mean. Let's take a little quick break. Billy Jonas.
You need a brand new way to inspire your day. Wake up talking.
You mean take up walking.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Thank you. 'Cause inspiration abounds when you move things around. So sickle your tenses.
You mean tickle your senses.
That's right. Then you can focus your flow when you get up and go on wings of thunder.
You mean things of wonder.
That's right. Appreciate your help. Now if you're down in the dump because you woke up grumpy, tap naked.
You mean nap, take it.
If you're stuck in your box, you can't break the locks. Just chew the doors.
You mean do the chores.
Then you can quit your fighting, court the muse and start writing. And she might bite your back. I mean, she might bite your rack. I mean, she might
right you back.
Yeah, shake a tower.
Take a shower.
Until the rhyme is tight.
Until the time is right.
You need a sour purge.
You need a power surge.
To get the righteous light.
To get the light just right.
And if you open your heart.
You mean hope in your art.
When the load is wrong.
When the road is long.
You can yearn less.
You can learn, yes,
to cite the wrongs,
to write the songs,
and write the songs too.
and cite the wrongs.
Okay, mate, let's groove on. I mean,
You mean, okay, great,
Yeah,
let's move on.
Right. If you're stuck outside, you might as well abide. Embrace the roaring pain.
Embrace the pouring rain.
And when you hit the bottom, solutions ain't got 'em. Lay in your stain.
You mean stay in your lane.
If you're tired of reeling, admit to what you're feeling and get low.
You mean let go.
Yeah, and I mean let go.
You mean get low.
And get low.
Let go.
And let go.
Get low.
And get low.
Let go.
And let go.
Get low.
You got the monkey food.
You got the funky mood.
You might read tonight.
You might need to write.
I'm yelling too.
I'm telling you
that the time is right.
that the rhyme is tight.
Because you might roar.
You mean you write more.
When you watch the birds.
You mean botch the words.
So put some soap in your hole.
Put some hope in your soul.
And botch the words.
You mean watch the birds.
And botch the words. Interesting. My terrors aren't so arable.
You mean your errors aren't so terrible.
Yeah, in fact, I find it flies when you whip them.
You find it wise when you flip 'em.
Yeah, let's bump check in.
You mean jump back in.
Right. You wanna shake up everything and have a reason to sing. Then bake a maybe.
You mean make a baby.
And bake a maybe. 'Cause all the pain and the trouble are going to work on the double to help you bring sight.
To help you sing bright.
And to help you bring sight. You'll learn to fly right through whatever's scaring you on wings of thunder.
You mean things of wonder.
And things of wonder.
Wings of thunder.
So take a shower.
Shake a tower.
And take a shower till the time is right.
Until the rhyme is tight.
And the time is right. You get a power surge.
And a sour purge.
And a power surge. And get the light just right.
And get the right just light.
And the light just right. If you hope in your art.
And if you open your heart.
And hope in your art when the road is long.
And the load is wrong.
And when the road is long, you can learn, yes.
And you can yearn less.
And you can yearn less.
And learn, yes.
To watch the words.
Folks.
And watch the birds.
Folks, welcome
And watch
back.
the birds.
And watch
Welcome
the
back here.
You can write the
Thank you.
And cite the wrong.
And you can cite
Thank you,
the
Billy
wrong.
Jonas. Again, he'll be at the Grey Eagle this coming Sunday.
Writers rock.
Writer's block.
Folks, you're with us in the studio on Dreamers and Doers, and you're listening to Asheville FM, WSFM LP here in Asheville. And I'm Carol, your host, and with me in the studio today is Chaz Jackson, author, motivator, and recent book that's come out, Live, Learn, Lead Powerfully, a Teenage Guide to Leadership. And also, I love it when my guest brings a guest. We also have Reed Bennett, who is the director, owner, inventor of Gladiator Sports Academy here in Asheville. And we've been talking about working with young folks. And I thought, Reed, why don't you tell us a little bit about our friend here, who he's probably a little bit modest, and then we want to have maybe not, I don't know, and then we'd like to have a little sample of your book.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because sometimes you want to brag on your friend when he's speaking, but his book, I think the biggest takeaway for me is there's a quote in there, and I don't know if you came up with it, Chaz. It sounds like you, but you have greatness in you because greatness created you. And in that, the whole book, basically, I feel like young people in particular, there's so much going on, so many distractions, so many things going on that take away their value. So they don't think much of themselves. And what I found out, when they don't think much of themselves, then they don't think much of their colleagues or the other young people around them. And then the first thing that we do when we get in a situation like that, well, we're going to start picking on each other to I'm better than you, or vice versa, and it just escalates. It doesn't go away.
Right.
His book hits on that in what I would think is just common sense. It's not complicated. I feel like sometimes we make life complicated, and Chaz takes those complicated situations and you break them down to something, it's not an easy solve, but it really we make the problem more complicated than what it is.
We're good at, and we overthink it. Yeah,
Absolutely. So just bragging on him and his abilities to write and make things, take something that's very complicated, in our eyes and the problem that we have in society, and you make it simple. You just make it common sense, and it does take work, absolutely, but it's not in your reach. It's in your reach. You can make it happen.
Right. And self-esteem is really, I think, one of the absolute keys to having a foundation to allow those gifts and allow that being, what are they saying now, live your best life or be the best possible you.
That's true. That's very true.
Are you going to give us a little sample of?
Yeah, well, I can definitely. Yes, ma'am.
You just happen to have a copy here.
I happen to have a copy. Whoa,
we're in luck today, Reed. By the way, the cover is really beautiful. Can you hold that up and we can, on the Facebook thing, it's really a good-looking cover. I really like that.
I'll put a picture in there, too.
Yeah. Dr. Darrell White, she kind of mentored me through this book. She's based out of Atlanta, Georgia. But Johnson Tribe, they kind of helped me facilitate this cover. We was really going for something. Hey, if you see this on a bookshelf at the bookstore,
grab it.
It's something that, hey, man, even if you don't buy it, you're going to at least recognize it. So. But what I chose to read, it was actually a story that really inspired me and my wife, Amy. And it's kind of targeted. It's in the chapter of the parent-child relationship, and it's called Life of Earthquakes. I was inspired by a story brought to my attention from a devotion my wife and I read together. I wanted to share it with you because I personally feel we all should strive to have a parent-child relationship bond like the one in this story. The story was about a devastating earthquake that occurred on December 7th, 1988 in Armenia. It was estimated that 25,000 individuals died that day. In a small town after the quake, a father rushed to his son's school to make sure he was okay. When he got there, he found that the earthquake had destroyed the building to the point that there was no life to be found or no sound of life. The father did not have a second thought about turning back. He remembered often telling his son, "No matter what, I will always be there when you need me." So the father began removing rubble from where he believed his son's classroom was. No other parent volunteered to help. They would often tell the father to go home. They told him all the children are dead and there is no way the children survived. The father continued to dig, remembering what he promised his son, that he would always be there. After 38 hours of digging, the story says that the father lifted a heavy piece of rubble where he heard a tent-like whole voice and saw his son. The father saved 14 children, including his son that day. What hit home for me was the son then said to his father, "I told the other kids not to worry. I told them that if you were alive, you will save me. And when you saved me, they will be saved. You promised you would always be there for me. You did it, Dad." This story fired me up as a father, and I am sure it fired up the kid that was saved by a father that kept his promise. It made me think about the parent that I am striving to be and how I want my kids to believe in me. I want them always to feel that I will be there for them as long as I have breath in my body led by God. I encourage you to remember this story and strive to make your parent-child relationship and love as strong as the father and son, regardless of what earthquakes life throws at you.
And debris, and get rid of the debris, the rubble. Yeah, really good mental image there. Thank you for reading that.
No problem. It definitely inspired me, man. I was like, wow. and the conviction, this child, I mean, we can talk hours about that story, but the conviction, this child's like, he truly believed in his father, man. He wanted to keep a promise. So,
and trust obviously plays into that as well.
And I truly believe us as parents and just our youth, man, we all strive to have that type of bond.
Remind us again when you're at Malaprops.
I am at Malaprops on June the 30th at 3 o'clock p.m.
Malaprops, by the way, if in case you don't know, is on Haywood Street and Walnut, or 55 Haywood, right near, if you can find the Basilica of St. Lawrence. It's just kind of catty corner there. Check it out. There's a great parking garage right nearby. In fact, a couple of them. So it's the iconic bookshop, and congratulations. That's kind of our Carnegie Hall of bookstores here, and it's known all over the country, actually. And congratulations. That's great. Sunday, I hope to see you there. I plan to be there. Since I have two folks here who work with folks that I probably don't see as often as I'd like to, and that's younger folks, let's talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges of young folks today. I do not perceive it to be easy to be growing up in our current environment. So what do you see as some of the challenges, Reed, that the folks you work with are faced with?
There's so many distractions. And when I first started coaching, I was like, that didn't happen back when I was a kid. Well, you know what? Two things. It doesn't matter what happened when I was a kid. And they don't care because I'm an older man. So, but the fact is that they've got social media. They've got so many more distractions going on. But to narrow everything down for me, what has really come to light to me recently is just how they value themselves. And most young people, not all, but most young people, they don't value themselves. And I mentioned that earlier. And if they don't value themselves, then they're not going to value the people around them. And that's a big problem. Mm-hmm. And you have, to me, narrowing down what the root of the problem is, you have probably, give or take about 60% of the young people around that don't have a father in the picture.
Okay.
And that's it's a huge impact. And moms, bless their heart, and moms are doing a great job, but it takes two to make a family go. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult.
A lot of people here in our area, they're working 2 or 3 jobs.
Yes,
and time, you can only work so many hours in a day and so many hours left over. So, there's also some things that we really don't see. And I want to kind of ask about cyberbullying is something that you know a lot about, Chaz. And I don't know if you've run into that working with some of your... Because almost everybody, I don't know, is there when you're 10 or something, you're supposed to get a handheld device so that you can be constant communication?
Yeah. So like every kid got one.
I was with a 2.5-year-old over the weekend, and he was showing me photos on his mom's thing, and he's flipping it around, and then he even knew how to get it to camera, and I'm going, he's not even 3 years old, and he knows all this stuff. So I guess that's an influencer that we don't see as readily as face-to-face.
Yeah, and kind of to piggyback off that, it seems like even when I was younger, bullying, when you saw bullying, when you got home or when you go home, it was over. You didn't have to deal with it to the next day. But now kids are dealing with, they can get bullied in school, but then not only are they bullied in school, when they get home, they on social media and kids are picking on them. So it's kind of like they're getting a double hit. And it's kind of increasing the probability of suicide and increase in red flag behavior. So it's definitely something that has to be addressed and has to, be influenced to change.
You mentioned red flag behavior. Tell us what you mean by that, or give us an example.
Red flag behavior meaning not going back on what Reed was saying, not knowing potential value or knowing your true value of who you are,
But what does that look like when you're with a kid and you see him in front of you?
Well, you can actually, with red flag behavior, it can go from the sense of just poor posture, kids walking with their head down, shoulders are slouched over, not really caring, they're not listening in school, they're not participating, and if they are participating, it's more of a distraction than being fruitful for other kids. You see things of the nature of kids, again, bullying and seeing other people different from them because they have certain problems or fears, guilts, shames that they have not necessarily overcome at that particular time. And because they put on that fake mask, kind of like what I mentioned earlier, if someone is not wearing the mask that they're wearing, they tend to look at them differently, right? And they find that as a way to bully them and find that as a way to, make them in the out of ordinary.
Well,
Make themselves look better.
Yeah.
Because the reality, most bullies, in my opinion, I have no credentials here, but just by life experiences, most bullies, the reality is inside, they don't have any confidence. They don't have any value. I mean, we had a conversation. That's probably the biggest thing. And you said it earlier. You've got to listen. And when you have a conversation with our young men, and we get in a circle at the end of practice, and we talk, and one of the things was how I asked the group, how much are you worth, or what's your value? And I had one young man tell me that he was worth $7.25 an hour. And I'm
that's not working. Yeah.
having a hard time hearing me.
Yeah. There you go.
So, and I said, you're worth so much more than $7.25 an hour. And we had that conversation, and it goes back to what Chaz says, and he comes and speaks to our team. But it's that you're great because there's greatness in you, because we're all made in the image of God. But there's no one saying that to these young men, and when they don't have someone. I mean, if someone's telling you that you're bad, or someone's telling you that you're not worth, then eventually you believe it.
Right.
But with us, again, Chaz and I both, through the book, we talk about value. When we're on, whether it's football or not, I don't care what your athletic ability is, but as a person, you have value. You've got abilities, you've got talents that are given to you that you could use.
Give me a specific example. If you see a child evidencing some of that behavior, is there anything specific you might say and do that one sentence isn't going to change his life, but over maybe an extended period of time or some repetition? But what are some things we can actually say or do to, whether it's our child or maybe a child we're influencing?
I truly believe practicing empathy. Empathy is a big one for me. Is recognizing a kid, if they're getting bullied, and pulling the other kid aside, was like, you're not seeing the world through that kid's eyes. You never know what someone else is going through at home. And this kid's coming to school or at his athletic program or whatever the case may be, and you're lashing out at this kid, and you're not lifting them up. You're not fueling their inner light, if that makes sense.
But can you actually say to the child, Reed, I've been noticing that you seem to be kind of withdrawn, and, let's talk a little bit about, or how's it going? Can you actually do that, and kind of, is that okay to do, or is that something that would work? Or, there's not one magic answer. I know that, but is there something that we can actually say to them or help draw them out? Because they probably need somebody to listen to them.
Absolutely.
Or somebody to talk to that might be on their side, or they feel that from you.
Right.
Yeah, most definitely. And in my book, in Building Healthy Relationships, there's a chapter, and I call it the 3 B's. It's being predictable, be relatable, and be exposed. I think to really capture a kid, because it seems like kids' attention span is very, very short. And you kind of mentioned walking the walk. Getting the kid's perspective, getting their full attention on a subject, being relatable. If you're encountering a situation that you can have a previous story that you can share with a kid to let them know how you approached it, how you overcame it, or if you made a mistake with it, that can kind of open up a whole new avenue. Like, hey, Chaz kind of went through this situation of bullying at one point, and this is some of the bad behaviors as far as, acting out, you doing substance abuse, getting arrested for poor behavior. This is kind of the road that he went down, and that's some of the stuff that I don't want to go down, because I see, it made him a better person at the end of the day, but he's trying to prevent me from having to go through that, because he sees me going even further than what he has went.
So what I'm hearing you say is story is really powerful here.
Yeah, stories.
Your
I feel like a great story,
and then find out their story, because you can't necessarily fix it always right there on the spot. You can't maybe fix an abusive situation at home, but you can at least give them that ability to have you found that once kids start opening up to you, their behaviors might become more positive or
Absolutely.
more, maybe
Most definitely.
more flowing. Yeah.
We've had, and Chaz, look, we support each other, so I can't take credit for his book, but we lean on each other, and I'm honored for him to call me a mentor. But and again, you say sports isn't for everything, but there's something out there. Maybe if you don't like sports, and you're talking about this is dreamers and doers,
Right.
maybe there's something that you love.
Yeah, theater,
And you could take
art,
that, you could take that
gardening,
passion, absolutely, and help young people to find value in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And for us with sports, and you're right, it's not a one-time conversation. It's building relationships with those young people, finding out who they are and where they're from and what's going on, a little bit of background, and you earn trust. And eventually, at first, particularly with young men, they're not going to talk to you. Mm-hmm. They'll look at you and they'll listen, and they are listening. But you have to earn their trust,
Right.
and then you could talk about what the problem is, and they're open to that.
I have to thank our guests both today. Chaz Jackson, see you Sunday, 3 p.m.
Yes.
at Malaprops with your book, Live, Learn, Lead, A Teenage Guide to Leadership. Thank you so much, Reed
Yes,
Bennett
yes, ma'am.
of Gladiators Sports, and look forward to having you around. Folks, hang in there. Amy Goodman's up in a couple minutes, and I remind you that the world needs dreamers and the world needs doers.
Amen.
But most of all, the world needs dreamers who do. Have a great
That's
week.
right.